Yes, awesome. Well, welcome back everybody to another Lady Leaders webinar. I'm super excited for this one. I was joking with Mark on a podcast that I feel as if it's almost like it's like prophecy. Whatever we lay out for the year, I feel like that starts to be exactly what we really see and happening in a lot of practices. So, I mean, I don't know if I can say, single-handedly, Lady Leaders is determining the destiny of dental offices. But I'm
I'll
kidding.
take
I'm
it.
kidding. Yeah, I'm
I'll
kidding.
take it.
But I'm just saying, I'm like, it feels like, whoa, holy smoke. Sometimes they're so superbly relevant to what people are going through right now that it's just, I'm so grateful for all the feedback from everybody. And I say it every time, but I truly am grateful to know what's resonating, what's, working, what's helping. And we love the feedback to know what we can do to be more helpful. But today we're really excited to talk about taking team training just to that next level. And for everybody who doesn't know who's on this webinar, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So let's start with Sydney Robinson, just in case there's somebody who doesn't know you in DSN.
Well, everyone kind of already knows, like, I'm that troll in the background who I know who everyone else is, but no one knows who I am. So thank you for always pointing that out because I just assume. But I'm Sydney Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of Operations here at DSN and Front Office Academy. And I am the founder and team coach for FOA Coaching. So I've been working with DSN, honestly, since the beginning. I was just a little baby, and here we are.
Awesome. Ashley, just in case people don't know who you are and what you do.
Yeah. I am Ashley Hirschfeld, and I am COO here at Dental Success Network. And yes, have been in the Dental Success Network, Dental Success universe since its inception 12 years ago. We realized it as of August of 2012. Oh, yeah, 2012. It's been 12 years.
Wow, that's crazy. I do want to back up real quick to something that made me giggle when Sydney, you just said, I'm the troll behind the scenes. I was like, no, you're not. like, like that word. I'm like,
She means she's always trolling. She knows where everyone is. She knows.
I know.
She knows.
The title fits. The title does fit.
So what's funny is it's like, I even know what that means. And I'm like, you're so the antithesis of everything I think with that word, though, just period, that I'm like, no, you're like the lovely little fairy behind
She's the fairy behind the scenes. That's what I was going to say. She's more like the fairy behind the scenes because she's the one making shit happen.
Yeah, I was like, I want to change that word, Sydney.
Rebrand.
Just for you, Summer. Yes, I'll rebrand that.
Yeah, I would prefer that. So anyway, well, welcome back to the webinar for both of you, obviously. And Ashley, you and I do these. I think Mark and I did figure out, or we figured out, I think it's been about 3 years of webinars. So yeah, there's quite a bit of content that people will be able to go back to. And one thing I will say is some of what we're going to be discussing today, we are going to refer back to some of our webinars that we've done before, including one with Sydney as well. So we, if possible, we can tag some of those on there so people can go back to them and look at them. Because I told Mark, there's so much content that until it's relevant for you, you sometimes don't need it. But when it's necessary, usually we've covered the topic over the last 3 years. So, but what I want to talk about first is what you guys are hearing and seeing in regards to the hiring market. And I'm not going to talk first just because I have such an interesting climate where I live, but where you're at with the offices that you're talking to right now, what are we seeing for hiring markets just in general? And then we'll kind of go department by department. So Sydney, what about you?
I have been so lucky to talk to a lot of our members in our FOA coaching people from all over. And really just, it depends on your area. I have some people in rural areas who are finding it a bit difficult to hire, where they're really thinking outside of the box and they're hiring people with no dental experience. Clinically, that's been a challenge. For our admin teams who are doing more administrative work, they're finding that they're thinking outside the box and hiring people who have no dental experience is actually working out. For people who are in a big city there, I'm actually seeing that the hiring market is starting to be a lot better. I'm actually not hearing people say that they want more money. I don't know, maybe it's the ones that I'm talking to, but what's really good is that we're not seeing like that really big spike of outrageous, outlandish salaries. So really a lot of people are focusing more on not only skill, but a lot of people are focusing on the culture. Do they fit our tribe? So that's really what I'm seeing from my perspective for hiring for team members. Office managers is still, hygienists and office managers are still that top challenge that some offices are seeing where they're trying to really get the right person in there. But when you're looking at your dental assistants, your admin team, I am starting to see that people are starting to find someone in those bigger cities. And then my royal people, they're thinking outside the box.
Sure. Ashley, what are you finding?
Yep. I was going to say the same thing. I'm starting to see at least there was such a spike in increase of, hourly and salaries being asked, and it's kind of seemed to level out a bit. It hasn't been like just steeply increasing in the last year, like we saw in 2021, going into 2022, people were just like, I want more, I want more. And, rightfully so in some cases. But, I am seeing, things starting to level out kind of across the board. And to Sid's point too, the most of the time I'm hiring for personal admin and executive assistants, and those seem to be getting filled a little bit quicker than they were, maybe a year ago, definitely than 2 years ago.
Okay. And I would say, yeah, for the most part, I agree. When I'm talking to doctors, definitely metro areas are seeing it loosen up faster. They are able to fill even hygienists quite a bit faster than a lot of the areas. I am finding Southeast is pretty, they're able to fill the positions, including hygiene, quite a bit faster than others. Washington Pacific West is still having some issues there. Colorado's in the middle as far as hygienists. It's loosening up, but it's still tough. I agree with you guys. I'm seeing that people aren't asking for nearly as much, and that's including even, some hygiene positions are not asking for nearly quite as high as before. So, front office positions, lots of people are able to find front office positions now, I'm finding. Treatment coordinators, scheduling coordinators with and without experience. Dental assistance has continued to be a little bit tricky, I'm finding, across the country. So once again, like Sydney said, finding people who are good culture fits and smart that can be trained as dental assistants is what I know a lot of offices are also doing. So, in you guys' experience, and this is probably a loaded question you may not be able to answer, but is it always best to hire from other offices to try to pull? We have heard for so long, make your ads so that you pull these people from other offices or already in other jobs, in dental offices, pull them from them and get them, before you try to hire people with no experience. Sydney?
Well,
would you still recommend having your ads catered towards trying to pull from other offices, or would you actually necessarily not worry about that and actually cater your ads to just getting exactly who you want no matter where they are?
I honestly think it's about what fit no matter where they are. When you ask the question about pulling from other offices, usually when that happens, and you've actually said this quite a few times, like most people don't leave because of money. Most people leave because of culture. They're burnt out. They're not growing, where they want to be in the practice. They're not feeling fulfilled in the practice. So I feel as if your ads is really going to fit what you're looking for in the office, and if you're really culture driven, in addition to skill driven, I think naturally you're going to pull those people who are feeling burnt out. So I hope that makes sense. In my mind, it makes sense. But
so you're more or less saying, like, you actually recommend catering the ad towards the culture you want. Don't necessarily try to pull from other offices. You're not trying to lure them from other offices. You're just saying, above all else, make that ad speak to exactly the avatar person you want.
Yes. Yeah. Because what if the person that you're trying to pull from another office, you're like, hey, do your office sucks? Come join us. Well, okay. Does that person, are they drama? Are they going to make me want to bash my head into a window when they come into the office? Like, I don't want just anyone coming to our office. I want someone that truly fits our culture, that is hungry, that is humble. I want someone that's really going to be here for the long haul and not just because they want more money or because, oh, well, this office put an ad out and I'm just going to jump around until I can. I really want someone who's going to stick with us and that's going to fit where our practice wants to go.
Okay. And Ashley?
Yeah, agreed there. I think if you write an ad with the intention of pulling from another office and you have that kind of negative intention behind it, I feel like you're going to attract maybe some negativity in the candidates that you might get. So I'm with Sydney, like just write the ads for your ideal candidate. And if they happen to be, out there looking, they're at another office, but they're unhappy for some reason, you want to attract for your culture and to fit your office first, because that's the stuff you just can't train for, and the stuff that is priceless when it comes to, like Sid said, if someone is out there looking for maybe that kind of negative culture, they might not bring the best vibe to the team. And if a ad says, does your office suck, come work for us, that might be some drama you're bringing. That was a really good example, Sid.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is, like I said, it's a little bit of a loaded question. I think that, of course, doesn't everybody want to ultimately pull somebody with experience because it's quote unquote easier, right?
Yep.
Everybody wants that. And I say, much like you just said, Ashley, is, I'm going to write my ad for exactly the right fit. And I want it to speak to the person who, when they're looking at it, they very likely are in another job. It just may not be in dental. And, I'm okay with potentially having all the right fit. It's speaking so clearly to them, like it is the lighthouse to which they are attracted to, that they would say, that's me. Oh my gosh, I literally just have to get an interview. It literally motivates them to want to, apply. And that could be somebody in another dental office for sure. But I think, moving to the next point, when we are looking for team training, onboarding well, which we're going to get into, I tell everybody, the job is significantly easier if we hired well in the first place. All of it becomes easier when we've just hired well. And when people ask me, gosh, like, how do you develop a leadership team, or how do you grow with so many people, you have good culture? I'm like, it's hiring. And we hear all of the stuff about, hire slow, fire fast. And I'm like, yes, I agree. But for some people, they're like, what does slow even really mean? Or what does it look like to hire slow? So, I think we can all attest here, because we are all so much of the same mindset, I think. Hiring well being the foundation of pretty much everything that, the rest is going to be built on. I think knowing that, I want to dig a little bit more into some of the things we have figured out with hiring. And I know we did actually, I think a webinar, Sid, back in like maybe March or something, where we actually did walk through a lot of these hiring questions and things like that. But, what are the things that in the hiring process can really make you stand out, make it look better, versus potentially making us look like we're not prepared, or that we'll hire a warm body? I'll go with Sydney.
Yeah. Now, are you meaning like once you're past the interview process and now you're hired, or interviewing part
Both.
of hiring?
You can do either or.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have to say one of my favorite is really throwing them off guard and not asking, when you're in the interview process, not asking the traditional, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I really do find that most people try to tell you what they think that you want to hear. And if you're asking those traditional interview questions, you're going to get the traditional answer. So what I really like is when you're making a connection with someone by asking non-traditional questions. And one of my favorite examples, I'm not going to take Ashley's, but one of my favorite ones, I have two. I have, do you like puzzles, Legos, or like any type of murder mysteries? I like that question because it identified problem solving skills. I really had someone come out and kind of sidetracking here, rambling, but I had someone yesterday actually say that she has ADHD. She absolutely loves Legos, but she finds that she can't complete them.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my goodness, that's wow. What is it that you find that when you're doing these Legos, what is it that happens when you're like, okay, I'm done? And she goes, it's when I get to the end and I know that I'm finished. And so it's not necessarily that she can't complete it. It's like she's done the hard part of it. And now she's like, this is easy. I want the next challenge. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just putting that right person in the right seat, because that's something that we talk a lot about too. So that's one of my favorite questions. And then who's your celebrity crush? It always throws them off. And I like that question because now they're not thinking of the technical interview process of it. They're more thinking about, I wasn't expecting this. How do I answer this question? So I like to just throw them off guard and then make some type of connection with them. Like, are they going to, as the kids say these days, are they going to vibe with me? Are we going to have like similar interests? Or are they going to say nothing? You know, when you ask those type of questions, it just brings out the personality is truly what I'm trying to do. So
Oh, I love it. Love
yeah, that's the interview process. And then once they're hired, I want to get to know them even deeper. I want to know their communication style. I want to know what their favorite things are. Are there people in the practice that they can connect with on a more personal level? Ashley knows me. I am dyslexic, so I function backwards. And so do I need to know, and I know not everybody's going to come out and say this, but when I'm communicating with someone, I need to know how I can train them. So I like to get to know their learning style. I like to get to know them personally. That way I can know how I can communicate with that person as we're starting to onboard them and get them through the hiring process.
Yeah, awesome. Love all of that. That's great, Sydney. Ashley, what about you? Favorite questions? Anything with the hiring process that you're specific about?
Um, yes, I love all of it. It's funny to like hear Vinny and myself because like we've created our hiring processes together a little bit. So we're, I think, a little biased. But yeah, just to tack onto that, I love, like she said, kind of throwing them off. My question is always, what are my favorite books? Is the ideal team player? And in that book, they describe the ideal team player as hungry, humble, and smart. How do you define those words? And then they have to be like, it just puts it like, what does that mean to you? And, sometimes I throw people off and they're like, well, one time I had a lady explain to me why she was on the keto diet. And I was like, that's an interesting way to look at hungry, but okay. Anyway, but I agree with Sydney, it's just about finding out, using questions to find out more about them personally to see if they'll be a good fit, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I was joking before that early on, I used to use the hiring questions as almost like a way of saying who's this is who we are. And now I'm like, I care so much more about we all talk very little. Let's find out who they are. And the more I get them talking, the better. And that's funny, Sydney. I feel the exact same way as you. Like, we like to throw in questions that actually are nothing that they would ever see probably in an interview. And a lot of them are truly like, what do you do for fun? And, really, what's the newest skill or thing that you've learned? What's like something new that you've done recently? To find out, do they naturally seek out challenges? Yeah. Do they love puzzles? Things like that. I think that's all so good because, like you said, once they get to start talking about what they're passionate about, what they love outside of work, do they love those kind of things that you were talking about, celebrity crushes, you can start to naturally see people's personalities come out. And it's funny, isn't it, that they're like in interview mode. The minute you say something like that, they're like, oh my gosh. And they start, yeah. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we're both humans. That's right. And you really can see, is this somebody that would fit in the culture? Because some people have incredible resumes. They are so good in interviews. And then what's funny is, I don't know about you guys, we plugged that, what I thought was a perfect fit, into our culture, and it just fell flat. They didn't love it. Like, we are all very huggy in each other's business. Like, it's just who we are, you know? And I warn people now, like, this is just who we are, and find out, is that something that resonates with them? Um, some of the other things that I have found more helpful as I interview is, you know, I always have Alistair in the back of my mind saying they're leaving something in hopes of gaining something else. So what is it that they're seeking? And I want clarity of, what is it this time that you're seeking? Because I want to identify as they're talking, is that something we're able going to be able to provide? If it's growth, I want to know exactly what kind of growth. What exactly does that look like for you? If it's mentorship, tell me more about what that looks like for you. And then specifically, for us, one of our biggest questions very early in the hiring process, and this is something Victoria, my EA, does actually, is in her very beginning, either 5-minute phone call or email, she's going to put something along the lines of, here's our core values, which one resonates with you the strongest, and which one resonates the least with you. Then she also asks, what are your non-negotiables? Is there anything that we need to know that would keep you from being able to do the job fully? And the reason being is, under non-negotiables, we'll put examples like salary requirements, days that you want to work or not work, hours that you want to work that you don't want to work. What are things that could keep you from being able to do the job? And sometimes, because we can't ask things like, do you have children? Do you have pets? Are you married? We can't ask that stuff. But we can ask if there's anything that will keep people from doing the job well. And so sometimes what I will say is, she'll get in that very beginning, whether it be the email or phone call, she'll get a couple things that are just kind of yellow flag or potentially red flag. There's no need for us to continue past that point. So we definitely get all of those really non-negotiable things that we can't match up. We'll get those done right away. I don't know about you ladies. Ashley?
Yes, absolutely. Get those. I want to know right off the bat, what, and I think that goes back to the what are you seeking thing, right? Like, tell me what you're seeking. That's going to help, I think, maybe shine some light on the non-negotiables as well.
Yeah. Sydney?
And you really said something that stood out too, that I see a lot in the offices that I'm working with one-on-one. Being really clear about the expectations of the role and what their day-to-day, weekly, monthly, what is that going to look like for them? Being really clear about that, because once you know their goals, and even in the early stages, if I know someone left their practice because they didn't have the opportunity to grow, and maybe I am a single practice owner, I'm in a small town, I don't see myself growing any further, there's a potential chance 2-3 years down the line, this person's going to get burnt out and not really want to stay with our office. I'm not saying that that's a bad fit. What I'm saying is, do you want someone long-term who's going to be with you? And is that going to fit where you are? And do you think that I want to grow within my town, and there are some things that I can help this DA do? Because keep that in mind, that if you don't know where they want to be, that you may run into that. And then if you don't set clear expectations of what their job title is, they get in there and not even 2 years, it's 6 months down the line, and they're like, okay, this is not what we talked about. Now I thought I was supposed to be doing all of these things, but I'm only doing this. So it's really going to be about setting those clear expectations in the way beginning.
Yep. I couldn't agree any more with you. I used to want to make myself sound just so great and like we're everything to everybody. And now I'm like, we're not. We're a black dress that's going to fit these types of people, but we're not going to fit these types of people. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Some people like our black dress, some people don't. And to your point, like when people say growth, I really just couldn't find places to grow. I love that, because it's like, tell me specifically, what do you mean for growth? Is it an OM that was like, I honestly was mostly a treatment coordinator and I want to learn the metrics and KPIs and really oversee the office? Is it a DA who's like, all I did was bread and butter dentistry, I really want to learn way bigger procedures? Or is it, I want to run multiple offices, or I want to oversee lots of people? But figuring out, I think more so, what does that terminology mean to them? What are they seeking? And by the way, what are they willing to do to help make it happen? Why couldn't they make it happen in the other role, by the way? What was holding them back? Because by the way, I want to find out, if you tell me what was holding you back in the other practice is probably what you're going to encounter here, well, then let's just be transparent from the very get-go. And I think what we're all trying to say is early on, as quickly as possible, when you're doing these interviews, whether it be you or somebody on your hiring team, whoever it is, a lot of this just needs to be fished out right from the beginning. The non-negotiables, what are you seeking? Why are you leaving that other role? Um, what can and can't you do in this position? What would keep you from doing the position fully? Asking all of that right away, and especially salary requirements. Sometimes those are so out of where we can actually pay. It's too hard to figure out where we could fit them into the practice. So having those conversations early will save you tons of trouble. Because what I find a lot of times is we brush that under the rug. We go with just all the good feelings, and then we're both sides, their expectations are missed. And then exactly like you said, it's only a couple months in, and they're already, not happy with what they were thinking this was going to be. So be clear right from the get-go. And I joke, like, I know it's hard when people are desperate right now, but we sometimes want to take an oval peg, I joke, and like grease it and then try to slam it into the round hole and be like, but it's so close. It's an oval. It's an oval, you guys. And I'm like, oh, I know, but it's just not quite right. And I always say, like, the more we can have all of that kind of conversations and everything ahead of time to figure out, and like you said, Sydney, I love that. Who's your celebrity crush? If that's exactly what silly conversation goes on in the break room, oh man, find out. Are they going to be able to fit in? Get all of that stuff figured out first. And if it's a round peg, believe you me, don't we all agree? You just kind of know. Like, this feels better. If it's not excuse my language, hell yes, probably just potentially, bypass it or at least continue to interview. Do we all agree?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. I love what you said about a hell yes. Like, you'll know it in your gut. And I always tell practice owners or even office managers, if you're like, well, they did say this, then no.
Yep.
Just don't do it.
Yep. My team has learned so many times the hard way because I have hiring teams and things like that. And they've said the same thing. They're like, oh, we should have, known. So, well, let's move on to, okay, now we have found this person, we've hired them. One thing that I say can instantly, no matter what the size of your office, can instantly make you look and appear just better organized and more professional is having a lot of the hiring documents ready, all the instructions for first day, including where to park, what to wear. Do they have their name tag and uniform ready for them when they get there? Do they have their locker ready? We have like a whole checklist that Victoria put together of pre-first day documents and everything that we need. I always say, like, the more we can do that before they start. So if their start date is 2 weeks after you hire them, the more you can keep them engaged by sending those emails of, here's who we are. This is our mission again, our core value. We can't wait to meet you. Here's what you need for the first day. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. It can come in kind of a drip thing of emails, or whatever it may be. But getting a lot of that done, organized, things like that ahead of time makes the first day not quite feel so intimidating to them and overwhelming for the whoever trains in the office. Sydney, what else?
I agree. I love that. And I know I'm guilty of sometimes, and we all do this, especially as leaders in the practice where we get super busy. So carving out that time in the beginning to create these systems or the checklist before they even start, it also removes like nervousness of the person who's starting. So not only does it just feel a bit more organized and you look good as a practice, but for that person who's starting, it just kind of get rid of some of the jitters. Something that I saw another office do that I thought was really cool, and I actually did inside the DSN, is I had everyone record like who they are, what they do in the practice. That way it's kind of like putting faces with a name before they come in, or we go over that. I find that people can connect like, oh yeah, you're such and such. I saw your video. They can kind of break the ice before they come in. I thought that was really cool. With this office, they have different schedules. Something else that I really like when they are coming into the office is giving a tour. Like, if you're not able to do something like that, giving them a tour of everything, walking them through where they can find, like you said, their locker, if you have one, the break room where they can put their things. I find that just helps as well. And then the final thing too is getting to know everybody as an individual in the office. And when I say an individual, I mean, what is it that this person does? What is it that Sydney does? So that I know that, okay, this is Sydney Lane. I can go to Sydney for, oh, Sydney and Sydney Lane. Okay. But I can go to, sorry, squirrel. I can go to Sydney for this, or I can go to Dr. Casmel for this. This is when that time when I go, because she said, this is her lane. This is what she owns. So if I can add one little piece in, it's getting to know each individual as an individual and not as, oh, well, this is front office. Okay, we know it's an area in the practice. Got it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. Everybody loves to be called front desk.
Yeah, I'm a desk.
Yeah. Doesn't everyone love that? Yeah. Yeah. Ashley, what about you?
I mean, I can again just kind of tack on here. Also, I'm getting my internet connection is unstable, so warning. But yes, to all of that, and to going back to keeping them engaged before they start. The number of times that I have seen candidates ghost because like the start date was just too far out. There wasn't enough communication. Like that gives them an opportunity to second guess this choice, kind of have buyer's remorse. Like this is from the moment that you offer them the position, which by the way, also try and, let people know as soon as possible with a formal letter too. Waiting weeks and weeks to finally offer them the letter, like it's unfair to them, it's unfair to your team. And yes, it does take a little more work in getting organized, but those first few steps are just so critical in how your office is presented. And that's their first introduction outside of the interview to the systems and how you run things. So I just have to tack on it, the beauty of this onboarding process, it just really starts to show, and you get to promote who your office really is, and have them get to know you. And again, if you have zero communication with them, but nobody's talked to them for 2.5 weeks and then they don't show up, yes, is it on them? Yes, half of it's on them, but also like maybe they were confused, maybe they didn't hear, that just streamline your communications in the beginning.
Yep. Well, and if people want some action items or things that they can do from here, what I would highly suggest is taking the time, whatever your CEO time, admin time is, to really think through what is the hiring process in general. Like we truly, and I do just real quick need to make a quick plug because Victoria found my EA, or Ashley found my EA Victoria. There we go. And she's incredible. And she really did create an SOP that said, okay, this is step 1. This is how we answer their inquiries. Step 2, this is how I do the 5-minute phone call and exactly what I ask. Step 3, this is how we plug them into Calendly with the hiring team. And she created links so that they can just go right into the Open Dental calendar for us, and our hiring team knows exactly when they have an interview. Step 4, what are the questions that we're going to ask in that 20-minute Zoom? Okay, Julie and Debbie are going to ask blank, 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 blank. They're going to do this, this, and this, and then we're going to send the criteria court testing. Step 5, like when they come in for their in-office, we call it assess and connect because we can't call it a working interview very easily. So we call it our assess and connect. When they come in for the assess and connect, remember, Debbie and Julie have already talked to them. We've already sent our criteria court testing. They come in, and when they come in, that's when they do exactly what Sydney was saying, which is, they ask more of those vibing questions. And then we tell people, like, we put them into like a flight simulation, which is, I joke, like pilots do it all the time before they fly. So let's put them in a flight simulation. Like, what is this going to feel like to be in your job? What is it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? And to your point exactly, Sydney, what are the expectations? What is it going to look like for you ultimately? And if they have no dental experience, this is when we let them know we've got an incredible training program for people with no dental experience. Let us tell you about it. So that way, if somebody, because for us, that's pretty much all we ever hire is people with little or no dental experience at all. And I think the more that we can walk people who may have answered that ad that they were so attracted to. We walk them through that succession of steps as succinctly as possible. What's crazy is we actually can have people hired within about 10 days. From that very first 5-minute phone call, because that weeds out a bunch because of non-negotiables, in that 20-minute, 30-minute Zoom with either Julie, Debbie, whoever it may be, between that step and that working assessment or assess and connect time, it's about 10 days that we usually can have them hired. And to your point, Ashley, one thing I would suggest is have your hiring letter just ready and done. Have it ready to go. You fill in name, you fill in their hourly, and you fill in start date.
Yes.
Have that all done, ready to go. And if you can create this, say, as soon as you can after this webinar, it's going to make your whole life a lot easier. Then the second action item would be once they're hired, they've signed the hiring letter. Yes, I accept. The next section of little SOP operating, protocol would be, okay, what email do I send first and what's all in it? Okay, that first email is a welcome video, which by the way has me, Summer Casmal, and it has me describing who we are, what our mission and core values are, and really what the legacy of the practice is, which is positive impact on our team and the community around us. So they get to watch that right from the beginning once they're hired. And then we trickle out just a few different videos, learning things like that prior to them ever starting. Now, people might be sitting thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do all of that. You don't have to do all of that. Just have something. Just have something ready. And there are people who aren't going to start for 2, 3, 4 weeks. We've got to be sending stuff out to keep them engaged. And one of the things too is, like Sid, I don't have videos of Meet the Team, but that would be great to trickle into those emails ahead of time. Meet Dr. So-and-so, meet our amazing DA or amazing hygienist, whoever. You could trickle those in there. I have a Meet the Team packet, and it has their picture, and then it has, a whole list of information underneath of like favorite core value, where they're from, who their family is, what position they hold, things like that. So that's a paper thing that we have more or less. But for action items, I think people could absolutely figure out what is going to be my hiring process and what's going to be the very initial onboarding after that person says yes, the time in between them saying yes and a start date. I'm going to stop talking, check in here. Anything else, guys? One of you want to chime in?
No, I think you just said everything that we are thinking when I was looking at some of the comments here. And the expectations, Rebecca was saying that was something that they see a lot in the office manager position is what is actually expected of them. So we're just seeing that across the board where we have some of our offices who are super busy. And you just said it too, where do I have time? Practice owners, practice leaders. It is not just all on you. That's why you have 7 or 8 people or 22 people that work in your office. It is a team effort. So if you did want to do something like this, utilize your team. That's what I did. I had my team, hey, by this date, can you have your recording of what you like, who you are, what you do for the company? I need this by this date. Boom, done. And we threw it into a Google file because I didn't have time to do what Sweet Summer had time to do, and put it all into a packet. I was like, oh, this would be super easy for me to do that this way. You know your practice better than we do. Our systems may not be the exact for you, but think about what could save you time. Is it just send a text message out? As you were actually just saying, Summer, maybe it's just, hey, Susan, on this date, can you text our new hire? Just shoot her a text message. Hey, welcome. This is Susan. This is what I do when you have some free time today. Maybe you can just slow leak it out that way. And you don't have to have this as something that's truly written if you're finding that, hey, I just don't have the time to do this, but have something in place.
Absolutely. So I think we've all agreed hiring well, better questions. Once they've said yes, really keeping them engaged until the start date. When they come in for their start date, I joke all the time, I have this thing about hospitality in my practices. And whether that be, as everybody knows, I love having traveling hygienists. So we have a lot of long-term traveling hygienists. And I joke, I want them to feel just as welcomed and excited for us, to see them as any other position that would be full-time. But I have this thing about offices, like I pray that everybody who listens, make sure that your team knows Judy's starting this day. We put it in open dental, like Judy's going to be here, everyone. Communicate it to the team. If it's a small team, communicate it yourself. If not, to Sydney's point, tell the people who can then go deliver the message. Because the worst thing, has anybody seen Judy walks in and literally people are looking at her, can I help you? Oh, I'm Judy. I'm starting on my first day. And they go, I've literally, it's like, oh,
Yes.
I don't know. I guess I'll go find Julie. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I guess just wait here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if I can find out. That's the worst feeling.
That is the worst.
I've been Judy, and it's the worst feeling.
Oh my God.
I've been Judy too, just so you know, as a doctor.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is worse.
I have a whole story about if we ever want to do a horror stories one. Oh yeah, I was Judy. And it was like, who are you? And I was like, well, can I put my stuff somewhere? And they literally said on the floor. And I went,
Yeah.
cool. So my point being, like, I think just that, being prepared for it and tell your team, like, we're here to greet. This is the person, like, we've all been so excited to meet. Like, don't forget, we've had to work really hard to find that person who was part of our culture. So don't forget to welcome Judy. Please go by and welcome Judy, things like that. So I think from day one, let's make sure there's an excitement, enthusiasm, and preparedness, I think, for her coming. I highly suggest, and this is part of our, yes, again, I'm sorry, but our SOP of what do we have ready on day one? And it is uniform, name tag. Locker already has her name on it. We make sure I'm a stickler for that. I want Judy to walk in and go, that's me.
Yeah.
I want Judy to open her locker, and inside we always have a gift. And we always have a gift of because we asked questions that said, like, Judy, what's your favorite candy? What's your favorite dessert in Starbucks? So we try to have a lot of that in there. We have up on the wall of the locker our core values and mission. And then we have some of our swag. Like we have a mug with our core values on it. And then we have hats and t-shirts and things like that. So we put our swag in there, some little gifts, and then just a handwritten card of how happy we are that they're there.
Yeah.
You guys can do whatever makes sense for you. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be a thing of M&Ms with Judy's name tag that says, Judy, we're so glad you're here. It doesn't have to be expensive or big, but I think it's a big deal this person's been waiting for this, and I want people to be able to come into an excited team. Anything else there for you guys?
Yeah, I
I just
actually
love everything you
love
just said.
that. And I would like to be hired so that I can get that special treatment. I mean, I can come in and be a traveling OM for you.
Come, Sydney, come.
But I love that because even hearing it just made me feel welcome. And if we are talking about the hiring process, making ourselves sound good to get them to say yes to us, but then we walk in and we're just like, they don't even know that I'm supposed to be here, then what the hey? So keep that in mind. Like, it just don't stop when they say yes and they come in. Like you want them to be able to fit in. But if I come in and Sydney has a frown on her face and she's on the phone, doesn't even look up at me, then wait, did I make the right decision?
Do you know how many people quit within the first 2 weeks? It's actually an astronomically high number. Yeah. It's an astronomically high number because there was lack of preparedness, organization, and there was no sense of like, we want you here.
Right.
Like those are the reasons that people said, like, I think I made the wrong decision. So yeah, it's a big number that will quit in the first 2 weeks. So I couldn't agree with you more, Sydney. Like, don't stop at like, yay, we got them hired. Ensure that when they come, people are ready. And then that includes, is there a training plan in place? And I know right now people are listening to this and thinking, I have so much work to do, possibly. And I know, oh my goodness, I can remember like every time I thought I had things figured out, I could come up with something else to make it better. So just start somewhere with all of this, I think we're saying. But when it comes to the training plan, ideally you want something per position that is what's day one, what's week 1, what's week 2, what's week 3, what's week 4, that's your 30 days, and then move to, I'd love somebody to come up here. I think I said, I'm like, I live in Colorado. Hi, Rebecca. I'm like, I love Coloradans. But I think if we can have day 1, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then we can have 30 days, 60 day, 90 day. And ideally, as they're walking through it per position, what are they going to be doing? And the reason being is people like to follow a map. They like to know where they're going and what we're trying to do on a day-by-day basis. And we're going to be talking here in just a second about some accessory tools for front office, but that really does go for hygienists. That goes for, DAs. For me, that goes for doctors as well. What are they going to be doing? And, we literally did just have we have 2 traveling hygienists that are starting with us for anywhere between 3 and 6 months. They went through an entire day, even though they're both experienced, they went through an entire day of onboarding. And the beginning of the day was universal training. And we always start with universal training, as everybody knows, because I'm a big stickler on, like, do they know where to park, what to wear, how to log in, how to clock in? How do they ask for PTO? What are the benefits? How do they apply for the benefits? Like, right? All those things that sometimes we just fail to go over, the very basics of things like that. And Sydney, I totally agree with you. Where is everything in the office? Did we give a tour so they know, like, where's the bathroom in this place, or where do I put my stuff, And so, like, all of these cupboards, where do I find things? So they go through, universal training day 1 to start. They always get a break, and then it's always a little bit of an abbreviated day, because the second part of the day, like for our temp hygienist, they shadowed the hygienist and they spent an hour lunch with that hygienist walking through expectations. And then this is exactly what it's going to look like. For other people who don't have experience, obviously you're going to need more potential basics like software training and things like that. But I'm going to let you guys kind of weigh in on, what does day 1 look like? Week 1 look like, Sydney?
Yeah. I like that you brought up clinical. I think we have, mostly everybody have a good grasp on the admin side of the practice. Dental assistant, I think so too, but I want to say this for my clinicians. I have had 2 offices that have hired either an associate or a hygienist, and they just start putting people on a schedule. And they just hit the ground running. It was so excited. I am going to tell you, in my opinion, that is a no-no. We're setting them up for failure. If you're hiring a clinician, whether it's a hygienist, even a dental assistant, sometimes we get so overzealous and we're like, oh, well, we can now book that second column that we thought now that we had blocked off because we were short staffed. No, people, no. Give them the onboarding and the tools that they need. So for all of my clinical hires, I always recommend at least a week. I like what you said, Summer, for week 1, week 2, week 3. And we have this inside of across all of our companies. But have something planned out. Week 1, I'm going to have you shadow Dr. Casmel so that you can hear how she diagnosed, especially for hygienists. I want to hear how she diagnosed. That way you can tee up the doctor whenever you're taking those x-rays. And that's a whole nother conversation about teeing up doctors. Dental assistants, you have to hear what your doctors are saying so that you can edify them and you can make your patients feel comfortable. You know exactly what tools Dr. Casmel needs for that root canal or that crown. You do not get that by being thrown into the fire and, oh, here's a picture, go off of it, right? Yep. Okay, we have a picture, because that's something that people get confused all the time. Well, I have this written down, we have a picture of it. Okay, you have a picture of it, but guess what? Maybe in this particular special case, the diamond burr isn't on there, or the football burr isn't on there, or whatever burr isn't on there, you need the specialty burr. And they don't know that until they actually get on the job training. Can we please move away from that? There's a certain area of on the job training, and there's another where if you want to teach your kid how to swim, you just throw them in the water. That's essentially what you're doing.
So into the very deep end.
Yes, the 12 feet. Like, don't throw me in the 12 feet. I can't swim, okay?
Yeah.
my clinicians, guys, please don't just throw them into the fire or into the deep end of the pool. Please give them the opportunity to be successful in their position and understand what's going on. So that was my little rant, and one of my biggest pet peeves for my clinicians. Give them that shadow time, and even not just the doctor, your admin team as well. They have to know who to go to for what. Well, I didn't know that Sydney does the treatment presentations, or I don't really know how what she means by prioritizing the treatment. I don't know how to do that. If you give them that opportunity to learn each team member as an individual by that first week of shadowing, or that first week, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a week. My preference is a week, but I'm just going to say, I don't know, Summer, you probably have a different perspective on that, but I like to give them a week of shadowing each department. That way they know how the office flow, and they're hearing how everyone's speaking. So I think that's going to be my little tidbit, and I'm gonna leave it there because I was just on a rant.
No, I get it, right? Because we've seen what happens. And I tell people, like, when it comes to clinicians, we actually go by slow down to speed up. And that really is our mantra and I say, guys, I get it. I used to want to take that $60 an hour hygienist and be like, oh, they're $60 an hour, just throw them in and have them start seeing patients. But I've seen every time that they get frustrated, they get burnt out, they get overwhelmed. Overwhelmed is always the word that pops up. And doing that with DAs as well. And I say, like, whether they have experience or not, I cater the training plan based on that experience. Like, I had a doctor who he used literally absolutely everything we did before he came. He used Blue Note, Open Dental, Glidewell Mill, iTeros. I mean, he used everything, dental intelligence to the T. I'm like, what office was this? Because we're identical. So his training plan was definitely shortened over some other doctor who had to learn Open Dental, dental intelligence, all those different things. So I think those training plans, they can be catered. Once you have them in just general form, you can cater them towards the level of experience, who the person is, things like that. But I think our point is throwing somebody right in, often we're just going to get a result that we're not hoping for, and it may be them quitting. So you might just get on that treadmill of, why can't I keep somebody? And I would say, your onboarding's not working if everybody is churning and burning after just a few weeks or a few months, is what I would say. Do we all agree to that, Ashley?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So, right now people are thinking, this was a lot of information potentially. Again, Ashley, they're saying, I think I need Ashley to find me an AA.
Yep.
Probably do. They're like, oh my gosh, like Sydney and all of them have all of these training plans, so I have so much to do. But we're asking you to start small. We're asking you to take it in increments of hiring. Once they're hired, how do you onboard before they start and when they start? How do you actually give them the best onboarding experience starting at day one? And how do you move through a 90-day process? Just start somewhere with some sort of documentation and getting some ideas there. Just start somewhere, I think, is what we're saying. But what we can also offer, and, DSN members, I'm so jealous. Like, I wish I had all of this, I think, back when I started. But there's a lot of incredible resources, in my opinion, right on DSN. Some of it's, free, but honestly, like, there's so many good resources. And I really wanted to talk to Sydney about, what she does is so helpful, and it works so beautifully with what Ashley and I do. And that's utilizing Front Office Academy, but even more specific, like Front Office Academy can really help take people with little or no dental experience and walk them through different video, like they can choose different videos in the FOA, Academy, but which is cool. Don't get me wrong, ladies. Yeah. What I actually think is cooler is that they can have one-on-one training with Sydney, with her people. So, if you're looking to augment your training, or you don't have somebody up there that can actually help train, Sid, just real quick kind of breakdown for people. What does it look like for FOA?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I will drop the example that I have here in the chat, but essentially, I'm just going to use what we've been talking about this whole entire time. Front Office Academy, we have a ton of videos that team members can watch. But let's be real, that's the boring side of the job. Like, no one wants to sit and watch videos all day. So an added bonus to that is we create this onboarding process for your team members for each position. And whether you have open dental, Dentrix is a iffy, but EagleSoft, we can put together this training plan for each individual based off of their skill level, because now we can customize this more for your practice. So we would combine our videos that we have inside of Front Office Academy with our training plans and documents. But like what Summer just said was, each week, what we want to do is focus on one thing. So this week, we're going to focus on, if it's my DAs, I want you to understand the patient interaction from start to finish, from the phone calls all the way to when they leave the practice. What does that interaction look like? So that's going to be week 1, understanding the workflow. Week 2, then we're going to understand where everything is in the office. Where can you find these instruments, these supplies? How can you be set up for each procedure, your pre-op and your post-op checklist. So it goes into that detail of how can we onboard them, and each week we can get them to where they want to be. And what I really love, and this is the part that I love about my job, is not only do we have this agenda, but I actually get to support them. I'm not a consultant. I want to be someone that support as a fellow team member. One of the things that I felt like I wished that I had, like what Summer just said, is I wish that I had someone that I can say, hey, this is what I struggled with. This isn't working. I watched this video, but it's not applicable to my office. Like, this isn't the same issue that I'm having, or it's not showing me. Now I have someone that I can actually call and pick up the phone and say, Sid, I know that you said that whenever I'm cleaning up my unearned income, I should do an income transfer, but this is what's happening. Now I can actually go in and I can really truly help them solve that issue. So that's the benefit of Front Office Academy. You can watch those videos, you can use our documents, and then FOA coaching just really goes in there and we customize that for each individual.
Yeah. And I think that's the
oh,
best part. Oh, sorry, Ashley. Sorry. Like, I think
no,
that's
I
the
just,
coolest part is the one-on-one with somebody. I think that's so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Ashley.
no, I was just gonna hype up the reason why Sydney knows this, and like she said, feels this way. The hired Sydney as an office manager in one of my practices long ago, and so this isn't just someone who's sitting behind a screen. Like, she's been in it. She's been truly in the trenches. She knows what it's like to be that OM. And the person trying to help a practice, but feeling like they don't have anywhere to turn. So now she gets to be that person, and it's really fun to watch.
And what I like is, some people are like, I mean, I think I've got a good enough training plan. Like, I don't think I necessarily need auxiliary help. But what I do have is potentially team members who already know the basics. They just, I want to help take them to the next level, and I don't know how.
Yep.
That's what I think too. Like, Sydney's really good for it. Like, it's really hopeful to have her take somebody who wants to potentially be an office manager. And I say all the time, like, her and Caitlin are the ones that I tell my own clients, like, talk to them about how to elevate them to an office manager. Because that's not something, honestly, I haven't done that job. I've done all the jobs, but that's not one of them. And nor would I have the time, as a practicing, owner doc. So I think that in addition is something that's really helpful for offices who might be listening and thinking, I need to augment training, but what if I already have people who are so? Taking them to the next level is something, in my opinion. Am I wrong? I think for me, like, is that right? Like, I feel like you guys can take them to that next level.
Yeah. I just dropped like an example if you guys want to see. I'm a visual learner, but this is just kind of an example of what Summer is saying. Like, you could just take each individual and grow them to where they want to be, and we can go as fast or slow as like the ball is in their core of how much they want to learn. If we're talking about an office manager position, one of my biggest things, and Mark and I did a wonderful podcast on this a few months ago. Like what Ashley said, when I was hired, I started off office manager, had no idea. What does this look like? And this is from like the guru himself, right? And it clicked all of a sudden for us of what that position looks like and what's expected of me. But just imagine, I can only imagine if I had that information when I first started, just what type of person I would have turned out to be. But not everybody's a Sydney. I'm a really, I learn from my mistakes kind of gal. Like if I made a mistake, how can I never make that mistake again? But not everybody has that mindset. And is that a bad thing? I don't think so. I mean, everybody's different, but if we can set them up for success in the beginning, then hey, at least we have what now a 90% chance that we have a rock star.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just so helpful because a lot of offices right now, like I said, they don't have somebody who they feel like is stellar at training. And I think that it really can augment that. And I think so much of this is at people's disposal. You don't need it until you really need it, I guess.
Yes.
One thing that I found is, in our practices, as everybody knows, I live up by Vail, Colorado. It's extremely hard to hire. And when I do, I'm going to hire somebody with little or no experience. And so, if people are saying like, I just need something that I can plop in my office that's done for you, that's where Dental Career Academy can be helpful. What I tell people is Dental Career Academy was made so that we could take somebody with no dental experience, plug them in, walk them through everything, starting from the very basics, including dental terminology, all of that sort of stuff. It literally is a Kajabi website that they can sit in one of our little consult rooms. They can kind of walk through it and pace themselves. They take quizzes, tests, they print off certificates as they're going, because then they can take those certificates wherever they're going to go. If they, for some reason, choose to move to a different state, they have all of their certifications for it. But what we tell people is, for us, we had somebody who could train. They just didn't have time, And so Dental Career Academy just lets them kind of walk through this because we have somebody who can then follow up with it and continue. So what I tell people is like, and maybe this is how I see it, like FOA just in and of itself is like kind of do it yourself, go in there, find the videos, put somebody in front of it. Yeah. If you need to take it a step further and you're going, here's the thing is I don't even have somebody to help with like curating those, putting it together. I would highly recommend reaching out to Sydney for not just FOA, but can she actually, her and her team, help put it all together, create the training plans, and work one-on-one with everybody. If you don't have trainers, I think to me, like that's the best deal around and helpful, I think. If you're really saying I have good trainers or I have people who can help train, I just need more of an augmentation, that's Dental Career Academy. And then if you're looking, in my opinion, like I said, to elevate your team, people who are already there, and maybe even elevate somebody to that OM position, that's Sydney, her actual OM training program.
Workshops, the live trainings.
Workshops, yes. And when you see those on DSN, I just highly advise thinking about if you have somebody who's looking at being an OM, really sending them to be around that. I just think even being in that kind of environment is so helpful. So did I get it all right for augmentation of training, ladies? That's how I've always seen it, that I think there's so many things that are at people's disposal that are right here on DSN, and I just want them to know about it. So instead of struggling with creation of training plans and onboarding, there are some really cool tools out there that can be helpful. We'll list everything in the show notes so people can just get an idea of where to go, what costs are, all of that good stuff. And always reach out if you guys have more questions as well. But just to kind of wrap it all up, what I would say is hopefully we've given people, I think, just some good tips and tricks for what does the hiring market look like now? It's loosening up in a lot of places, which is great. But how do we hire well? How do we have questions that really get to the heart of who that person is and what they're looking for? Opening them up to, what's their personality going to be like? Creating, some good hiring questions, some hiring protocols that make it to where you look really professional while you're doing it, as well as, when they are actually hired, how do we walk them through, starting day one with our excitement, how do we walk them through an incredible onboarding process where they're going to feel like we want them there and we want them to succeed, I think. Anything else though, guys, as we're wrapping it up, Sydney?
No, I think you just nailed that. And just a complete summary of everything that we just discussed. I know a lot of people who are on here are DSN people, and one of the biggest things that I do see underutilized is our support team. If you just don't know where to go, what resource is best for you, we have a fantastic support team. You can always reach out to us. You can post here inside of Workplace if you need to. Hey, where do I go for this? Go to our support at Dental Success Network and message one of our support team members. We can help you find what's the best resource for you, because you just said something that stood out to time. Time is really valuable for a lot of you that is present. And so I think that is something that I find is underutilized. And then the OM, training, I do want to let everybody know we have our next one coming up, which is going to be super fun. We actually had to extend more tickets, and I had to find more space because we have so many awesome office managers. But I want everybody to know this isn't just for office managers, this one. Although we're going to have a portion that is leadership, a second portion of that is going to be account revenue management. And I think that's what drove up our attendance. But I want you guys to know that we do have that available. It's going to be in Denver, where Ashley and Summer is currently stationed.
I wish I was closer to Denver, because I was just telling Ashley we do need to hang out more, but
Yeah.
I'm close enough. I wish I could pop down and say hey, but by the way, oh my goodness, Sydney, people need the accounts revenue cycle information so bad, because one of the trends I'm seeing is lots of appeals, really long pay cycles, collections are down in a lot of offices. So wonderful. That's fantastic.
That's why we added it. It is trending. We want to try to tackle that head on.
Yep. So wonderful. Well, Ashley, anything before I say goodbye and go pick my kiddo up?
Yeah, I think I know we ran a little long here, but I love it. We just so many good things. So let me just keep going. Just kidding. Long story short, visit frontofficeacademy.com, frontofficeacademycoaching.com, dental career academies.com. And yes, take advantage. Reach out if you don't know what's right for you. Shoot us a message. Let us help guide you as far as where you're at and how these things can support you. If you need an executive assistant, that's me too. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Always so much fun to get to hang out with you guys. And yeah, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys again next month.
All right.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye, everybody.